This is a new segment we're going to introduce called Hypothetical Corner with the Daily Grind. It's where we think about different hypotheticals. After watching the game last night, there was a lot of questions that I had mid-game. Questions about Taylor Jenkins. Question about Will Hardy, because Will Hardy has these dudes. He coaches his ass off. And I remember when he was with Boston, like he was considered one of the like next guys, the next round of NBA coaches. He was like, people talked about him. And so I got to thinking, who's the next big H head coaching hire? Hypothetical corner. Maybe not necessarily for the Grizzlies. This doesn't have to be a Grizzlies conversation. That's where my brain kind of stemmed from, but I don't want to pour dirt on Taylor's grave until he's out of the building. So I'm just thinking, if not for us, some teams will be firing their head coaches and teams will be looking for new head coaches at the end of the season. Who are the guys? And there maybe there are guys you have eyes on for the Grizzlies if you think we're going to need someone. But who's the next Will Hardy? Who's the next Ime Udoka? Like, who is the next guy that you guys like that could hypothetically be the next guy for the Grizzlies? The next guy for,
if you look at the guys who are kind of the hot new guys there, it's, Mark Daigneault at Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah.
They hired him off their G League as their G League head coach. First time I've ever seen that being done. And then Will Hardy, much like Taylor Jenkins, I believe, was just an assistant somewhere.
Boston.
Brainy guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Boston.
it's from Boston. Okay, I missed that, I guess. I was looking at the standings down here.
No.
I don't know that given the Grizzlies situation, and I do believe that Taylor at this point is fighting an uphill battle when it comes to keeping his job. He's going to have to win a playoff series, I think. I do think, given our situation and everybody else's beefs with the psyche of this team, and in particular your star player being John Morant, I do believe that a former player probably would be held in higher regard by the players in this situation. Somebody that can get the most out of Ja, convince him, is somebody that's probably been there before. And the first name that pops out in my head is a guy that's been up for multiple head coaching jobs before, but hadn't got them. Maybe that's a red flag. I don't know. But big balls, Sam Cassell is, to me, an obvious one. He was a long-time NBA veteran, the kind of guy that did the dirty work. The old clip used to play on Bluff City Media commercials of Brevin Knight saying, you've got to play to keep that patch on your chest. Yeah. And Sam Cassell was a guy that did whatever he could to be a good teammate, to be a good locker room guy, and to step up when he needed to step up to have an extended NBA career. And he's been an assistant coach for a decade and a half now. Like it seems like his time has come, and he would, without doing lots of research, he's the first name that comes up to my mind.
Yeah, Sam Cassell is one that comes up a lot. I think, Drew, like, we need somebody that can unlock, like you said, Ja. And I think for me, it's going to be a former player that's turned coach, because they know, like you said, they've been there, they know what it takes. And Sam Cassell is a name that comes up a lot. Damon Stoudemire, who's the head coach at Georgia Tech, is another name that comes up a lot. He's a motivator. He's a guy that can.
He's with Boston, right?
Yeah. He's the head coach of Georgia Tech right now. He's feisty. He's got some NBA experience. He played a long time with the Trailblazers. Another name that comes up a lot, and I don't know a ton about him, but just doing some research last night, Micah Nori is one of the bench coaches in Minnesota. Apparently a lot of GMs and front offices are saying he's kind of going to be the next name to watch as a potential head coach. Jordi Fernandez is doing a fine job in Sacramento, but if that continues, they're going to keep him.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah, Brooklyn. Sorry. Thank you.
Jordi Fernandez. Now you're talking about the interim at Sacramento, right? That's
yeah.
Wayno will have to help us out in the comments.
The guy,
what's his name? Yeah, not Jordi Fernandez. He's in Brooklyn.
Somebody will pop it up in the comments.
I think like a former player like a Sam Cassell, Damon Stoudemire, if not, like Mike Brown's another name. Like, I know he just got let go from the Kings, but he's one that I don't know that we need quite like a Lionel Hollins hardline kind of guy, but Mike Brown can be that guy that say again?
Mitch Johnson.
Yeah. That's the kind of, but like a guy like Mike Brown that can draw a line in the sand and not be a player's coach where you're just like buddy with the guys dancing before the game, all that BS. I think to me at this point, Taylor's biggest indictment is how much the players like him.
Yeah, I'm trying to find
Doug Christie. Doug Christie. He's the one at Sacramento.
Doug Christie.
I was trying to go back, and I know I saw Van Gundy's name in the comments. I know some people, if you want to go like, I don't want that option, but I know that if you want to go more proven guy, Van Gundy's an option. Dan Hurley, I saw up there. I don't.
Let's touch on this.
Yeah, you want to talk about Dan?
Gentry over here, he is consistent. He's an Edey guy and he's a Hurley guy, which means that he was very happy in last year's March Madness finals with it, UConn and Purdue. But there is a 0 chance that Dan Hurley works out in the NBA. And not to me, like he's just, maybe the lights got too bright. Maybe the pressure got too big trying to three-peat. But the dude was off the rails like 75% of this season. Yeah. And I don't like the guy. And I don't think the players will like the guy. And when we say there needs to be somebody to keep John in line, yes, it does need to have a stern voice, have a respected voice. But he comes across as a tyrant.
Yeah, and whiny, and I don't like whiny, and he's super. If it doesn't go his way, super whiny. If we promote Tomas to the head coach after TJ, we're not a serious team. We're not a serious franchise. We are. If that happens, that tells you everything Kleiman, everything you need to know about what Kleiman thinks about this team, and that we're nowhere close to being a championship team. If that happens,
yeah, I just don't know. This would not be the direction that I would like to see.
I'm not saying that's not what Kleiman will do, but I'm just saying if he does that, then to me that screams we're not anywhere close to being a contender.
I remember when they fired Yeager, and there were names that went out that I really wanted. Indiana had just fired what's the guy's name?
Vogel.
He just won a title in the bubble with the Lakers. He was the coach last year.
Frank Vogel.
Frank Vogel. I wanted Frank Vogel so bad.
I did too.
And he chose Orlando. And you've got to, and at that time the Grizzlies didn't have a bright future that maybe Orlando did. I don't remember much about that Orlando team. But at this point you put John Moran up on a poster and say, who wants to coach this guy? Who wants to unlock this guy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And show them some highlight films from a couple years ago and be like, this is what you could get if you come to Memphis.
And I can't sit here and tell everybody that I think that the coach is the most important thing in the world. I've put all this blame, the majority of the blame this season on players not playing up to their potential. But I do think you still go out and try to find a seasoned head coach with NBA games under his belt. I think that's what Jenkins lacks. Is that in-game feel, and so you've got to go find somebody that's been on an NBA bench, and that's along with his personality. That's the reason why I don't like Dan Hurley and the Tomas guy. Like I don't even think he's the lead assistant on this team, and so as much as he is just kind of like brought in to bring a mad scientist, as a mad scientist to bring in his experiment,
Yeah, it's tough, man, because you're looking at if TJ's the 5th longest tenured head coach in the league, and the guys ahead of him all have championships.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. Again, we've said it on here numerous times. Like it's hard to make that transition from developmental coach to championship winning coach. It's only happened a handful of times, and so again, and TJ will absolutely land on his feet in San Antonio or Charlotte or Atlanta, somewhere that's up and coming, that's got a bunch of young guys. Washington, like he will absolutely land on his feet. Don't get it twisted. But he'll do the same thing there. He'll develop guys to a point, but he can't get out of his own way due to analytics, due to whatever. And I don't think that he's going to be the guy that could get us to a championship, much less a playoff win. And so I think it's time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And we've done it for 6 seasons now. And yes, we've been bit by injuries and had some very unlucky things happen, but TJ gets in his own way more often than not.
Yeah. I just hope that it doesn't bite us in the tail and we go with somebody that is doing this for the first time again.
Sure. Agreed. 100%.